I didn't want to go that night. That's probably the part that keeps replaying in my head more than anything else. The fact that I almost stayed home. That I almost avoided the exact moment that ended up changing everything. Emily had been talking about that charity dinner for weeks. Not casually either. It wasn't just, hey, we should go. It was planned, rehearsed, built up like it actually mattered. She bought a new dress for it. Not something simple, something expensive, something she kept hidden until the night before. I remember walking into the bedroom and seeing it laid out on the bed like it was part of some kind of presentation. Too much? She asked, holding it up against herself in the mirror. I shrugged at the time. It's a dinner, Em. You look great. You always do. She didn't smile the way she usually would when I said that. Instead, she studied herself, turned slightly, adjusted the fabric. Like my opinion wasn't really the point. That should have meant something to me, but it didn't. The day of the event, she was different. Not nervous, not stressed, excited, almost too excited. She spent hours getting ready, longer than usual. Hair, makeup, trying on different earrings, switching shoes twice. At one point she even changed perfume, which caught me off guard. She had a signature scent she always wore. That day she used something lighter, sweeter. New? I asked. Just felt like it, she said quickly, not even looking at me. That was the pattern all day. Quick answers, distracted tone. Like her mind was already somewhere else. I should have noticed. I didn't. By the time we got in the car, I was already mentally checked out. To me, this was just another obligation. Something you show up to, smile through, and leave as early as socially acceptable. To her, felt like something else entirely. The hotel was exactly what you'd expect. Too nice, too polished, too loud in that quiet, expensive way. Valet took the car. Doors opened before we even reached them. And inside it was all warm lighting, clinking glasses, and a live jazz band playing like we were in some movie I didn't remember signing up for. Cameras flashed near the entrance. People were actually posing. I leaned closer to her and muttered, "We really need all this for charity?" She laughed, but not at me, just laughed, and then stepped forward like she belonged there. That's when I started to feel it, that subtle disconnect. Like I was walking with her, but not really with her. Inside, people greeted her immediately. Not me. Her. Compliments on her dress, her hair, her smile. She handled it effortlessly, like she'd been preparing for this exact moment. I stayed close at first, hand on her back. Small talk, introductions, the usual. I played my role. But even in those first few minutes, something was off. It's hard to explain unless you've felt it. It wasn't something obvious. Nothing you could point at and say, there, that's the problem. It was more like her attention wasn't landing where it should. She'd look at someone talking, nod, respond, but her eyes would drift. Just slightly, just for a second, then snap back. At first, I thought I was imagining it. Then I started watching more closely. Kept happening. Same direction. Over and over again. Like there was a magnet somewhere in that room pulling her focus away from everything else, including me. I tried following her gaze once, casually. But the room was packed. Suits, dresses, people moving in layers. Whoever or whatever she was looking at stayed hidden behind all of it. But she knew exactly where to look. And then there was the phone. That's when it really started to sink in. She checked it constantly. Not in a bored way. Not scrolling, not K*ling time. It was deliberate. Every few minutes, like clockwork. A quick glance. A pause. And then, every time, the same subtle shift in her expression. It wasn't a smile. It was anticipation. Like she was waiting for something to happen. Or someone to show up. I remember standing there with a drink I hadn't even touched, watching her from half a step away, realizing I hadn't actually had her full attention once since we walked in. "Hey," I said at one point, trying to pull her back. "You good?" "Yeah," she said quickly. Too quickly. Just a lot of people. But she wasn't looking at me when she said it. Her eyes flicked past me again. Same direction. Same look. And that's when something shifted inside me. Quietly. No anger. No confrontation. Just awareness. Like my brain finally caught up to what my gut had been trying to tell me since we got there. This wasn't about the event. This wasn't about the dress, or the excitement, or even the attention from the crowd. It was about something or someone else in that room. I didn't know who yet. I didn't know why. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't the reason she looked the way she did that night. And once you realize that, you can't unsee it. I remember taking a step back, literally and mentally, creating just enough distance to observe instead of participate. She didn't even notice. That might have been the moment that hit the hardest. I stopped touching her, stopped engaging, stopped trying to pull her back into us. And nothing changed. She kept scanning the room, kept checking her phone, kept smiling at something that had nothing to do with me. And standing there, surrounded by music and laughter and people pretending everything was perfect, I felt completely alone. Not because she wasn't next to me, but because she already wasn't with me. And deep down, before anything actually happened, before I saw anything concrete, I think I already understood the truth. Something had started long before that night. And whatever it was, I was just the last one to catch on. It didn't happen all at once. That's the part people don't really talk about. The way things fall apart quietly before they break completely. After that first shift, I stopped trying to pull her attention back. Not out of anger, just instinct. Something in me said, watch instead of react. So I did. And once I started watching, I couldn't stop seeing it. Emily wasn't just distracted. She was tuned into something specific. Her eyes kept drifting to the same point in the room, like there was an invisible thread pulling her there. Every time. No hesitation. No randomness. Just certainty. And the more I noticed it, the more everything else started to feel staged. Like she was going through the motions of being there with me, while something else was running underneath it. Do you want another drink? I asked at one point, mostly just to test if she was even present. Oh yeah, sure, she said, without really processing the question. I didn't move, just stood there. She didn't notice. That told me everything I needed to know. Then came the phone again. Another notification. This time I was close enough to catch the timing perfectly. Her screen lit up, just a brief glow, and before she even looked down, her lips parted slightly. Anticipation. Again. She turned her body just enough to angle the screen away from me. It was subtle, practiced. If I hadn't already been paying attention, I probably would have missed it. But now everything stood out. Her breathing changed. Her posture shifted. And when she finally looked back up, she didn't look at me. She looked past me. Same direction. Same person. I felt it then, that tightening in your chest that doesn't feel like panic yet, but isn't far from it either. Still, I didn't say anything. I just stepped back. Not dramatically. Just enough to remove myself from the center of whatever she thought was happening. And again, she didn't notice. That's when the silence started. Not the kind where no one's talking. The kind where one person checks out, and the other one realizes they're alone in a conversation that technically still exists. Minutes passed like that. Maybe longer. I don't even remember what the people around us were saying anymore. It all blurred together into background noise, because all I could focus on was her. On the way she wasn't with me, and then, out of nowhere, she did something I didn't expect. She laughed. Loudly. Too loudly. People nearby turned. I looked at her, confused. What? And that's when she did it. Right there. In front of everyone. Oh my God, she said, still laughing, but now looking directly at me. You do this thing, you know that? You manipulate my emotions and then act like you don't. Took me a second to even process the words. What? I asked. She shook her head, smiling like it was all some kind of joke. You always try to control how I feel. It's like you don't even realize it. People were listening now, not openly staring, but enough to feel it. That shift in the room, the subtle attention. I felt it immediately, and what hit me harder than the words themselves was her tone. It wasn't serious. It wasn't even angry. It was performative. Like she was putting on a version of our relationship for an audience. Like I was part of a story she was telling. And I didn't even know my lines. Could have argued. Could have shut it down. Asked her what she meant. Told her to stop. But I didn't. Because something clicked in that moment. This wasn't about me. This was about control. About creating a narrative. And I wasn't going to play into it. So I just looked at her. Held her gaze for a second. And then, I stepped back. Not physically this time. Emotionally. Completely. No, I said quietly. Not defensive. Not aggressive. Just final. And that was it. No explanation. No argument. No reaction. I removed myself from her world in that moment. And the weirdest part? She noticed that. Her smile faltered just for a split second. Like she expected pushback. Like she needed it. But I didn't give her anything. No touch. No conversation. No engagement. I turned slightly, shifting my attention to someone else nearby, nodding along to whatever they were saying. I don't even remember the conversation. I just remember the feeling. Distance. Clean, intentional distance. And from that point on, I stopped being her partner in that room. I became an observer. She tried once or twice to re-engage. Small comments. A light touch on my arm. I didn't respond. Not coldly. Just neutrally. Like she was anyone else. And that's when things got quiet between us. Not just for the rest of the night, but after. Because something changed in that moment. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But permanently. We left the event together. Drove home together. But we didn't speak. Not really. Just surface-level words. Logistics. Nothing real. And when we got home, we didn't fight. We didn't argue. We didn't even address it. We just existed in the same space. Separately. That night turned into the next day. Then another. Then a week. And then more. No confrontation. No resolution. Just silence. Heavy. Intentional silence. I didn't ask questions. She didn't offer answers. And in that quiet, everything became clearer. Because when someone stops pretending, you start seeing who they actually are. And Emily? She didn't try to fix anything. She adapted. More time on her phone. More distance. More of that same look I saw at the event. Just now it followed her everywhere. And me? I stayed quiet. Because I already knew. Whatever was happening had been happening long before that night. And whatever came next was just going to confirm it. I didn't go looking for proof that night. That's the part one still think about. Because if I had been actively searching, checking, chasing, confronting, maybe I could have blamed myself for what I found. But I wasn't. I was just watching. And eventually, the truth shows itself when you stop getting in its way. It happened later in the evening. After her little performance. After the silence settled in between us. After I stopped being part of whatever version of reality she was trying to create. I had stepped away at that point. Not far, just enough to get a clear view of the room without being directly next to her. That's when I finally saw him. Nate. At first, it didn't register. He was just another guy in a suit, standing near the bar, talking to someone I didn't recognize. Confident posture. Relaxed. Like he belonged there just as much as anyone else. Then Emily moved. Not toward me. Toward him. It wasn't obvious at first. She didn't rush. Didn't look around to see if I was watching. She just drifted. Like it was natural. Like that's where she was supposed to be all along. And that's when everything slowed down. I watched her approach him. Not too close, not immediately. There was a pause. A moment where they stood just within each other's space. Exchanging a look that said more than anything they could have said out loud. Recognition. Familiarity. This wasn't two people meeting for the first time. This wasn't even casual. This was established. I felt it instantly. That quiet, heavy confirmation. Then she smiled. Not the smile she gave people throughout the night. Not the polite one. Not the social one. This was different. Softer. Real. And it wasn't for me. He said something. I couldn't hear it. But she laughed under her breath, leaning slightly closer like she didn't want anyone else to catch it. That's when he touched her. Just her wrist. Light. Deliberate. Testing. And she didn't pull away. She didn't even hesitate. Instead, she leaned in. That was it. That was the moment. Because there's a difference between flirting and something else entirely. Flirting has uncertainty, boundaries, that slight tension of should I or shouldn't I. This had none of that. There was no hesitation in her body, no awareness of lines being crossed. Because for her, they already had been. Long before that night, I felt something drop in my chest. Not explode, not break, just drop, like a final piece falling into place. Everything I'd been noticing, the phone, the glances, the distance, it all aligned in that single moment. This wasn't new. This wasn't spontaneous. This wasn't a mistake waiting to happen. It was already happening. I stood there longer than I should have, watching, not because I wanted to, but because I needed to understand exactly what I was dealing with. They kept talking. Closer now. Too close. At one point, she adjusted something on his sleeve, completely natural, like it was a habit. Like she'd done it before. He leaned down slightly when he spoke. She tilted her head up just enough. There was a rhythm to it. Comfort. And the worst part? She looked calm. Not nervous. Not guilty. Comfortable. Like she wasn't doing anything wrong. Like this version of her life made sense. I don't know how long I stood there. Minutes. Maybe longer. Time didn't feel real in that moment. Everything narrowed down to just the two of them, and the space I no longer belonged in. Eventually, I turned away. Not dramatically. Not in anger. Just done. I didn't confront her. I didn't walk over there. I didn't make a scene. Because what was there to say? I had already seen everything I needed to see. The confirmation wasn't in a kiss. Or anything obvious. It was in the absence of hesitation. That's what made it undeniable. When someone doesn't even think about whether they should be doing something, it means they already decided a long time ago. I grabbed my coat quietly. No announcement. No goodbye. Just movement. And for a brief second, I looked back. She was still there. Still with him. Still in that same space that excluded me completely. And she hadn't even noticed I was gone. That was the final confirmation. I walked out of that hotel like nothing had happened. Like it was just another night. Another event. Another drive home. But inside, everything had shifted. Not violently. Not emotionally. Just permanently. Because once you see something like that, you can't pretend anymore. And the truth? It wasn't that she chose him in that moment. It's that she had already chosen him, long before I ever walked into that room. I didn't confront her that night. I think most people would've. Walked back in, caused a scene, said something they couldn't take back. But I didn't. I drove home like nothing had happened. That was the strangest part. No music. No thoughts racing. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that settles in when your brain finally stops asking questions and starts accepting answers. By the time I pulled into the driveway, I wasn't angry. Not yet. Just clear. The house felt different when I walked in. Same furniture. Same layout. Same everything. But it didn't feel like mine anymore. Like something invisible had shifted while I was gone. I set my keys down, took off my jacket, and just stood there in the kitchen for a minute, staring at nothing. No pacing. No panic. Just stillness. Because deep down, I already knew what I was going to find. I just needed to see how far it went. I didn't go to our bedroom. Didn't wait for her to come home. Didn't text. Instead, I sat down at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. There was one thing she had forgotten. One thing she never thought to hide. The shared cloud account. We set it up years ago, photos, backups, random files. One of those things couples do when everything still feels simple and permanent. She stopped using it actively a long time ago. Or at least, she thought she had. But accounts like that don't forget. They just keep collecting. I logged in without hesitation. No guilt. No second thoughts. At that point, I wasn't invading anything. I was confirming reality. First, it looked normal. Folders. Old photos. Documents. Then I noticed something new. A recently updated section. My chest tightened slightly, not from fear, but from recognition. There it is. I opened it. And everything unfolded faster than I expected. Messages. Not texts, those she was careful with. These were backups. Synced conversations. Fragments she probably forgot were even being stored. First it was light, casual tone, inside jokes. Nothing you could immediately point at. But then it shifted. Gradually, the tone changed. Short messages turned longer. More personal. More familiar. And then I saw his name. Nate. Just like that. No guessing anymore. No assumptions. Just confirmation. I scrolled. And with every line, something inside me went colder. Not angrier. Colder. Because this wasn't something that started recently. It went back. Weeks. Then months. Conversations layered over time. Plans, jokes, late-night messages that had nothing to do with anything innocent. There were gaps, of course. Missing pieces. But there was more than enough to understand the full picture. They weren't building something. They had already built it. And I had just been existing next to it. Then I found the photos. That part hit differently. Not because of what they showed, but because of how normal they looked. Smiles. Angles. Moments that could have been anything, if you didn't know the context. But I did. And once you know, everything changes. There was one in particular. Hotel mirror. Her reflection. Same dress from a different night. Same look in her eyes I saw earlier that evening. Not for me. Never for me. I stared at that one longer than I should have. Then I kept going. Bookings. That's where it stopped feeling like betrayal and started feeling like something else entirely. Planned trips. Reservations. Dates. Not vague ideas. Concrete plans. They weren't sneaking around anymore. They were organizing a future, piece by piece, while I was still part of the present she was pretending to live. And then, I saw the messages about me. That's what actually broke something. Not the cheating. Not the lies. Because it wasn't just complaining. It wasn't frustration. It was dismissal. I read one message twice just to make sure I understood it correctly. He's easy. He won't question anything if I keep things normal. Another one. He's comfortable. That's the problem. Comfortable. Like I was furniture. Like I was something stable she could rely on while building something else behind my back. I leaned back in the chair slowly, staring at the screen. And for the first time that night, I felt it. Not rage. Not heartbreak. Something heavier. Respect. Or more accurately, the complete destruction of it. Because cheating, as bad as it is, people can explain it, justify it, wrap it in emotion. But this was calculated, sustained, controlled. She wasn't lost. She wasn't confused. She was managing two realities at the same time, and I was just the easier one to maintain. I closed the laptop slowly. No dramatic reaction. No slammed fists. Just finality. Everything made sense now. The event. The phone. The look in her eyes. The way she didn't even notice when I stepped away. Because in her version of things, I wasn't the center anymore. I was just part of the background. I don't know how long I sat there. Time didn't really matter at that point. Eventually, I heard the door open. She came home. Same steps. Same routine. Like nothing had changed. But everything had. She walked into the kitchen and froze slightly when she saw me sitting there. "You're back early," she said, trying to sound normal. I looked at her. Really looked at her. And for the first time in years, I didn't recognize who I was looking at. Not because she looked different, but because I finally saw her clearly. "No," I said quietly. "I just left on time." She hesitated. Just for a second. Like something in my tone didn't match the version of me she expected. But she didn't push. Didn't ask. Didn't explain. She just nodded and moved past me like the night didn't exist. And I let her. Because I didn't need answers anymore. I already had them. And whatever came next wasn't about discovering the truth. It was about deciding what to do with it. For a while, I didn't do anything. That might sound strange. But when everything finally becomes clear, you don't always react right away. Sometimes you just sit with it. Let it settle. Let it arrange itself into something solid. That's what I did. The next morning felt normal. Too normal. Emily moved through the house like she always did. Coffee. Phone. Light conversation that didn't actually mean anything. Do you want eggs or just toast? She asked at one point, like the night before didn't exist. Toast is fine, I said. And that was it. No tension in her voice. No guilt. No hesitation. That confirmed something I hadn't fully accepted yet. She wasn't nervous, which meant she didn't think she'd been caught. And more importantly, she didn't think she would be. That told me everything about how long this had been going on. I didn't bring anything up. Didn't mention the event. Didn't mention Nate. Didn't mention the cloud account. Because at that point, I wasn't looking for a confession. I was looking for the full picture. And there was one piece still missing. Who exactly was Nate? The name felt familiar. Not in a vague way. In a specific, uncomfortable way. Like something my brain was trying to connect but hadn't fully processed yet. So I started digging. Not obsessively. Just methodically. Old contacts. Emails. Linked accounts. And then it hit. Harder than anything else so far. Nate wasn't random. He wasn't someone she just met recently. He wasn't even new to my life. He was from my past. A former colleague. Someone I used to work with years ago. Someone I had actually helped. That's the part that stayed with me. Because it wasn't just recognition. It was memory. I remembered covering for him during a rough time at work. Helping him keep his position when things could have gone very differently. I remembered sitting across from him, talking things through, making sure he didn't lose everything. And now, he was standing in a hotel, touching my wife like I didn't exist. That realization didn't feel like anger. Felt like something colder, something cleaner. Like the last illusion had finally been stripped away. This wasn't just betrayal. It was deliberate, layered, connected. And suddenly, I needed to see it for myself. Not through messages. Not through assumptions. Directly. The address wasn't hard to find. One of the bookings in the cloud account linked to a location, an apartment, not a hotel this time. More permanent. More real. I didn't rush. I didn't storm out of the house. I waited until later that evening. Told Emily I had something to take care of. She barely reacted. Okay, she said, eyes on her phone. Don't be too late. That was it. No curiosity. No concern. Nothing. And somehow that made it easier. The drive there was quiet. Familiar feeling. Same stillness as the night before. Because at this point I wasn't hoping to be wrong. I already knew I wasn't. I just needed to confirm how far it went. The building was exactly what I expected. Not flashy. Not cheap. Somewhere in between. The kind of place you don't question. I parked across the street. Sat there for a minute. Not building courage. Just marking the moment. Because I knew once I stepped out of that car, there was no going back to not knowing. Eventually I got out. Walked up. Found the unit. And knocked. No hesitation. No second thoughts. The door opened faster than I expected. And there she was. Emily. Standing there like this was just another normal evening. For a split second, something flickered in her eyes. Not panic. Recognition. Like she was recalculating. Then it disappeared. Replaced by something else entirely. Control. What are you doing here? She asked. Not shocked. Not confused. Just measured. I looked past her. And there he was. Nate. Inside. Casual. Comfortable. Like I had just walked into a space that already belonged to them. I stepped inside without asking. Neither of them stopped me. That part said more than anything else. Because if there was still something to hide, they would have reacted. But they didn't. That told me everything. I turned to face her. You want to explain this? I asked. Calm. No raised voice. No emotion. And that's when she did something I didn't expect. She exhaled. Like she was tired. Like this was the inconvenient part. Not what she had been doing, but the fact that I was now standing there. This isn't what it looks like, she said. Same line. Different setting. Same tone. Rehearsed. I almost laughed. Really? I said. Nate stayed quiet, didn't step forward, didn't try to intervene, just stood there, watching. That told me even more. I looked back at her. You've been seeing him for months, I said. Planning trips, talking about me like I'm some backup plan. Her expression tightened slightly. There it was, the first real crack. But she didn't apologize, didn't break down. Instead, she shifted. You went through my things? She said. There it was. Deflection. I shook my head slightly. That's what you're going with? You had no right? She continued, stepping forward slightly, like she was reclaiming ground. No guilt, no remorse, just repositioning. And that's when it fully clicked. She wasn't sorry, not even a little. She wasn't caught in something. She wasn't overwhelmed. She had just lost control of the situation. That was the only thing bothering her. I looked at Nate for a second. He looked away. That was enough for me. Then I looked back at her. And for the first time since all of this started, I felt completely clear. No confusion, no questions, no emotional pull, just understanding. You're not even sorry, I said. She didn't answer, because she couldn't, and she didn't need to. I had already seen it. I nodded once, not to her, to myself. Then I turned and walked out. No shouting, no scene, no closure, because there was nothing left to close. And as I got back into my car, I realized something important. This wasn't about losing her. I had already lost her a long time ago. This was about realizing she was never who I thought she was to begin with. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I disappeared, blocked her everywhere, moved money, filed the paperwork. Quiet, clean, final. She tried everything. Calls from unknown numbers, messages through friends, even showing up at my work. I didn't respond once. Weeks passed in complete silence. And then one night a message got through. Just one. I lost everything. He left. I have nothing. I stared at it for a long time, not because I felt anything, but because it confirmed what I already knew. Without me, there was no stability. Without stability, whatever they had collapsed. And for the first time, she understood what she traded. Emily ended up alone. No perfect life. No plan. No Nate. He disappeared as easily as he showed up. And me? I left too, but differently. New city. New routine. New people. No noise. No past. Just peace. Because in the end, I didn't win by fighting back. I won by walking away in a way she could never reach again. And some doors? Once you close them like that, they don't reopen.